Another thing I also watch out here yung Senate race. I think masyado natin pinag-usapan yung vice presidency, presidency. But the Senate race, if you look at it, mukhang yung mga allied sa opposition, progressive candidates, a lot of them are struggling. I think the only one I see that was consistently within the margin is Rizon Tiveros. Yeah. So I think that's the other thing you have to keep in mind. Kaya nga sabi ko, even if manalo si Lenny, and then of course anything is possible, she could face quite a hostile Senate and Congress, right? Dahil sobrang mukhang marami dyan mga progressive candidates, they're not doing as well. So I think many people are too obsessed about the presidential race. They forget the fact that for an effective administration to happen, dapat magkaroon tayo ng synergy or a certain degree of same wavelength dapat yung executive and legislative. So yun din ang pinapanood ko dyan. But of course, millennial ako, so kami yung mga medyo bata in the previous elections. This time, I'm really looking forward to Generation Z. I want to see yung Generation Z nakaka-capture ba ng surveys, yung kanilang tendencies. We have seen a lot of studies that are suggesting that perhaps yung certain candidates who are very active on TikTok with their nostalgic, cool kind of messaging is doing well among the Gen Z. But I want to see the exit polls. Kasi hanggang makikita ko yung exit polls and all, I think it's a little bit too premature to judge how certain generations are going to vote in these elections. Let's not forget, in the 2016 elections, the millennials actually were less enthusiastic with the Bongbong Marcos vice presidency than people at 55 and above. So actually, the millennials were one big reason na nanalo si Lenny, but of course, by a very thin margin. This time, ang tinitignan ko dito is Gen Z, the next generation naman, dahil hindi na kami bata eh.
Okay.
So do you think there's basis for the observation that the surveys might not be really reflecting what could actually be the final results of the votes, considering now that the youth vote was underrepresented? What do you think of the surveys?
Yeah, yun nga eh. So,
yeah,
kaya nga ako, ang approach ko dito is always combine qualitative studies with quantitative studies. Yung mga ethnographic studies na ginawa ng sociologists, ng mga political scientists. Hindi ko lang tinitignan ano yung sinasabi ng mga statistician, mathematician, right? Because sometimes people come up with their own alternative data, but they're based on very questionable sociological assumptions. For instance, one of the things I keep on hearing is this. Parang the assumption is, pag mas mataas yung level of education mo at kung level A or B ka in terms of economic, socio-economic, demographic, then siguro mas layo, mas panig ka doon sa opposition kaysa sa BBM side. I'm not sure that's backed up by ethnographic studies and sociological studies. In fact, a lot of studies, let's just put aside the surveys, no? A lot of studies are showing that more and more of upper class and upper middle class Filipinos want a disciplinarian leader, no? To create, ang tawag ko nga dyan, Singapore envy eh. Marami sa atin nakapunta sa Singapore, tingnan mo yung Singapore, napakaganda. Ano yung government nila? Hindi ganun ka-democratic. So baka yun din ang kailangan natin. So let's not forget that actually a lot of studies show even our upper and more educated Filipino demographics are also leaning and more towards authoritarian leaders. So those are the numbers I'm looking, not just the surveys. Okay. Not to mention, Pew survey showed in 2017 and 2020 that only 15 to 20% of Filipinos were categorically committed sa liberal democracy. So 30, 50, 60% even of Filipinos, based on some of numbers I've seen by World Value Survey, Pew survey, show that many Filipinos are ambivalent, not necessarily pro-authoritarian, but not necessarily also excited with liberal democratic. Kaya nga this race could have been won by a centrist candidate, or this race was actually potentially much more open than what it's turning out to be, at least based on some of the surveys. Now,